Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Game Informer Spoiled. I am Alex Stadnick. I am GI's largest video editor. Joined with me today, Brian Shea, Blake Hester, Marcus Stewart, and Ben Reeves. Gentlemen, I hope you're all doing well. Today, we are here to spoil Spider-Man's Miles Morales? Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, the PS5 exclusive, PS4 exclusive, the Sony exclusive, we shall say. And so, just so you know, this is spoiled. If you're here to go over everything in the game. So we are spoiling everything. So this is your chance to get out if you haven't beat it.
That's right. And if you're here, you're family.
Yeah, exactly. That's what Spider-Man's about, is family, right?
Yeah.
So beat it. I don't know how long it took you guys. It took me about 8 to 10 hours. It's worth it. Go play it on PS4, PS5. It's fantastic. But without any further ado, Mr. Hester, what did you think of the game? We're going to run down and talk to everyone about their feelings on the game before we get into the spoiler-y stuff.
I liked it far better than Spider-Man 2018,
Wow.
I will say. I think it fixed some things about the original game, mainly in length. The game's too long. I liked that this game was very short. Not to be controversial or political on the podcast, not a Peter Parker fan at any of his incarnations. So the fact that Peter Parker's like, bye, at the beginning of this game, I was like, all right,
hold on. You can't say you're not here to be controversial, then spit some hot take like that.
I'm sorry, man. I just don't like him. I think he's a dork, but I love Miles Morales. So that was like the perfect trade-off for me.
For sure.
But overall, like those two big things, I think like made me really interested in this game and like want to see it through. I think it's still very repetitive like the first game, but that's like post-game stuff. So it's like, I don't think that affected my overall enjoyment. So campaign like was really hot on it for sure. I think it's the best of the Spider-Man games Insomniac's put out.
Cool. Mr. Shea, how about you?
I really like Peter Parker, so I was kind of bummed that he left. I know this is Miles' show, so I was totally expecting that. I don't know if I like this game as much as 2018. 2018 Spider-Man, I adored. I actually, on my personal list, I picked it over Red Dead and God of War in terms of my favorite games of that year. So I really, really loved that game. I thought they did a great job with, portraying a slightly older Peter Parker than we usually see. They did a great job of introducing Miles as a character you should care about, and then obviously setting up for what eventually became his own game. And I think that they did an amazing job transitioning to Miles' own game with this one. And I love the campaign of this game. I was kind of bummed that it did come a little like on the shorter end. I mean, I'm not from like a practical standpoint because I have so many games I need to play before we get to a Game of the Year discussion.
For sure.
However, it being kind of like a side game, as they've kind of put it out there, it's not like you don't have the marquee villains that you had in the 2018 Spider-Man. Like, obviously, 2018 Spider-Man, you had the entire Sinister Six as headed up by Dr. Octopus, which is really hard to compete with. However, I really liked Tinkerer. I really thought that she was an awesome villain. Prowler was a really cool character to interact with. So overall, I like it slightly less than the 2018 Spider-Man, but that's still a really, really good game.
For sure. Marcus?
Yeah, so obviously I'm a big Spider-Man fan, and I love that 2018 game to death too. I also enjoy Peter Parker, but I didn't mind seeing him go because this is Miles's spotlight. And I like this game about the same as the 2018 game. It's just that I like it for very different reasons. And one of the big things about this game that separates it is that it's a much more personal story than the 2018 game was, and the focus on not only just Miles coming to his own as a character and I guess as a young adult, but also focusing on his community and really zooming in. And like, I love the story of like, this is what having a Spider-Man means to the people of Harlem, and how they feel like, oh, this is our Spider-Man, and kind of having those like more deeper and engaging interactions with just like the separate citizens of Harlem and seeing them all come together. It's a lot more interesting than just kind of, Spider-Man's a more zoomed out view of like he has to protect all of New York City.
For sure.
And I think that more intimate look at like, no, let's look at Harlem and let's look at the culture and let's see what the people here think of like, wow, we have our own specialized Spider-Man. Well, that's pretty cool. I think that Miles himself, it's funny, Blake. I was like, Miles is a huge dork too. So,
Sure. But he has a
um,
personality, you know, and that's what I thought was great about him.
He does. He has a lot of personality. I love his portrayal in that game. One of the things I love about 2018 Spider-Man is the writing and the performances for all the characters and making me fall in love with characters that I know inside and out to make me see them in a new light again. I think is impressive, and they've done the same thing with Miles and Genki and his mom Rio. I like that it's a smaller experience. I don't really need it. I didn't really need another big Spider-Man game right now, especially with all the other big stuff coming out around the same time. And I think it benefits from having that more focused view from it because of that. So yeah, I thumbs up. I think that game's really awesome. So
Cool. Mr. Reeves?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm just going to reiterate a lot of what everybody else said. I also like Peter Parker. Not a big fan of Blake in any of his incarnations, but what are we going to do? I wish we could swap him out for somebody cool like Peter Parker.
I'll see you on the see you on the podcast later, Ben.
Hope you're better. Yeah, I will say, I like Brian Shea. Spider-Man, the 2018 version was also my game of the year that year, so lofty expectations. But this game is really good, and I really enjoyed it. And I think while I don't think it exceeds that game, there are things that I think it does do better in certain areas. I think that Rhino boss fight at the very beginning is probably the coolest set piece that Insomniac's ever done. Like, it's super fun, super enthralling, and in some ways, it was so good that I feel like it was a hard bar to clear. Like they made that so cool that the second half of the game, I don't feel like had quite the same level of stakes or quite the same level of enthusiasm going into it for me. But cool suits. Like, it's just fun to swing around and be Spider-Man, right? That Into the Spider-Verse suit that they added.
So good.
I know that's not a spoiler, but it's so cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool to like swing around and feel like you're in a cartoon.
Yeah.
And it's cool that you can apply that to any suit.
Yeah, 100%. I think for me coming into this game with how, and we're going to spoil the 2018 Spider-Man 2, so just be warned if you haven't beat that, why you're here. How they ended that with the idea, and we'll talk more about this at the end of this, that Harry was going to be Venom. I was like, that's all I want, and that's all I'm excited for. So when they announced Miles is kind of
That's
like,
all you want?
I'm so excited for that. That has made that Spider-Man 2 or whatever they're going to call that the only thing I want in life. Really, I don't need water. I don't need food. I don't need any of that. But so that's what, like, when they first announced this, I felt myself go, okay, this will be cool. But like, I'm so excited for what they're going to do with that story. That's like, that's what I wanted. But I think they did an awesome job. And I think, like Marcus said, they made it that personal story. And I think that worked through that really well. And the Insomniac's writing has been incredible with these characters, to a level that I guess I didn't fully expect from them, because I love like Ratchet and Sunset Overdrive for them. But like the first game kind of made me tear up. I won't say fully cry, because why would I? But like, so I think this hit a lot of those beats. It didn't hit me quite as hard as that first Spider-Man game. And then the Venom abilities really, I think, added to the combat in like a
That's another thing that's better. Is the combat's better, I think, in this game. Because of those Venom abilities, it really adds something that I think was not necessarily lacking in the last game, but I think it just adds a nice like way to spice up the combat.
100%. So I'm curious to see how they implement that in the next game. But focusing on Miles Morales, it starts off, everyone's seen it at this point, the amazing Rhino chase, Peter kind of handing the torch over to Miles, him and MJ being out of the country. And then you kind of get to know Rio Morales and Genki Lee, and then we meet Finn for the first time.
Real quick, too, just because you mentioned Genki, and be ready for me to interrupt you constantly.
Of course,
but did you guys I thought the voice acting across the board was largely pretty good. Genki's voice, for some reason, I had trouble like matching that to his face, if that makes sense. It just didn't seem like the kind of voice that should be coming out of that body, if that makes sense.
I didn't have that problem.
Find that jarring? I was like, what?
No.
It just sounds too old to me.
Oh, interesting.
Doesn't sound like a high schooler.
Genki was my favorite character by far. I loved that dude.
I like the character.
Yeah.
The voice jarred me. Apparently I'm alone.
Sounded like he was like 30 to you.
Yeah.
No,
well,
Finn's voice is actually the one that was jarring to me. She always seemed very flat and very emotional or emotive moments. She would come across a little like wooden, which kind of bummed me out because her being the main antagonist / Miles' best friend, there were a lot of moments that like ostensibly were these emotional moments that I just didn't land for me because her performance.
Well, she seems
wasn't
sad
where I.
all the time, right?
Which
Yeah, I
yeah,
guess
that was
that's a good
it.
way of
I think
putting
she
it.
has a good reason to be.
And she does, right?
Yeah.
And so I think even
Right,
those scenes
yeah.
where she's smiling, there's a little bit of sadness there because, here's the spoiler: her brother's dead, right?
What?
Hold on.
Oh,
here.
did you finish the game?
Yeah, I should have told you guys this was a spoiler cast before.
Yeah.
No, I think that something like that works. I think it's just her emotiveness wasn't really working for me in some of those moments.
Well, you know what? Good news. When they remaster this game, they're going to change all the faces and voices to make it match better.
Perfect.
I will say that was a little jarring for me, seeing Peter look like the Tom Holland lookalike all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I don't think it matches the voice nearly as well now.
Interesting.
Do you think it's just because you're used to that old face?
I think it's been enough time that I didn't even remember what the other face looked like until I went back and looked at it. It's weird how they had like kind of like almost like an Andrew Garfield looking guy, and now they have like a Tom Holland looking guy.
Yeah.
Where's the Tobey Maguire looking guy?
That's for real.
That's a Peter I could get behind.
Yeah. So did you guys? So we get to the bridge scene that Sony had shown, but like it's Tinkerer's big reveal. Did you guys know? Did you guys figure that was Finn?
I had it spoiled for me. So, yeah.
Boo.
I think I knew it was Finn the second that you opened the door in your house. And here's your guest, Peter.
Yeah.
Here's a guest for dinner. It's like, okay, this person's going to be important to the plot somehow and is probably the Tinkerer, who they made a big deal as being a woman this time.
Well,
I feel like they should have hid that a little bit. It's like, oh, maybe it's not a woman. Like maybe you don't know who the Tinkerer is. And then maybe that reveal would have been a little more impactful.
For sure.
Well, they even telegraphed it. Like, did you notice when you open the door, she's fixing your doorbell?
Oh,
Yeah.
Because remember,
Yeah.
the first thing she says is like, "Oh yeah," because Rio's like, "Oh, that doorbell's never worked," and she's like, "Yeah, I hope you don't mind. I just fixed it." Like literally, she's like finishing it up as you open the door. So it's
First
like,
time you see her
okay,
tinkering.
Tinker can't stop tinkering.
but actually, I mean, I kind of had it spoiled for me too. It was actually I think in a stream that we did out.
Oh no.
But you don't know if it's a spoiler or if it's someone trolling.
Yeah.
But like I'm kind of glad they got it out the way they did because it's
Yeah.
like even after that scene, it's like, yeah, probably. And so like literally the first time you see her, you find out who she is. Like there's no mystery whatsoever, and it's like, you know what? Sometimes I like it drawn out, but especially because of how short this game is, I kind of like that it's like, no, you just know, because then you can focus on like the drama of knowing it's your friend and not like, who's this Tinkerer?
For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think like getting that out of the way made for much better emotional storytelling than if it waited till like 3/4 of the way in for Miles to figure it out. Like he spends basically the entirety of that game being pretty screwed up about this whole thing that I think worked well for the story.
Yeah, my favorite Spider-Man moments in general come from that tension that exists when like they know who each other is and they have to kind of like behave civilly. Like spoiler for Spider-Man Homecoming, but when Peter finds out who Vulture is and they kind of both realize it at the same time. I think that's one of the best scenes in the MCU in general, let alone just the
Yeah.
Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, that seems great.
Yeah.
Going back to Miles Morales, but I liked Finn being the Tinkerer conceptually, and I think there's some good scenes there. And it's like, oh, my best friend is also my supervillain. It's a very Spider-Man thing, and I like that. There's just something weird about like the further in you get, the more you're like, okay, Finn is also the leader of this gang called the Underground, and there's like thousands of them. Like, who are all these people that she's recruited? And like somehow, even though she was Peter's best friend, like never knew anything about this. And I know they haven't talked in a while, but still, it just seems weird that like somehow, he wouldn't know, or she wouldn't have reached out to him. It's like, hey, I'm trying to plan something happened with my brother, I want your help, like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it just felt a little weird there.
For sure. Weren't they already like an established group and then she kind of took over? Am I misremembering that? Because they took over after demons. Yeah, the demons left town.
Yeah.
Well, it shouldn't be confusing to anyone. Finn was brought on board because she could build guns, as she says.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I cleared that right up.
That'll do it. Did anyone also like have a hard time taking the Underground seriously because they reminded you of Saints Row villains.
Mm.
I think because of all the purple, but I was like, I feel like I'd be fighting these guys in like the virtual world of Saints Row 3. Especially with their big, the big fisty guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's
Miles just bouncing around as a toilet. Oh wait, that's why you turn into bricks and stuff.
There you go.
There it is. Yeah.
It's an illusion. Yeah.
Yeah. So moving more into the story, we get to meet another really important character in Miles's life, Aaron Davis, aka the Prowler. And I think Into the Spider-Verse has kind of, as it's done with a lot of things that revolving around Miles, kind of informed us a little bit on who that character is. So I'm curious what you guys did you like Ben and Marcus? I know you guys are big into the actual comic. Did you guys like the portrayal of Aaron Davis in this one?
I did. I think they kind of nailed that character and like I said, the conflict between the two of like he's a good guy at heart who has just made a lot of like bad choices, and you can tell he kind of grapples with trying to come to terms with that, especially now that he knows that his nephew is a superhero that, so they're just at odds by default. But I like this version of the game where like, because normally, I mean, usually in the comics, like Miles's dad is not dead.
Correct.
Right.
Whereas like he has in this game, now that he's gone, he has that extra layer of like, I don't want to lose you too on top of my brother. Like, my brother and I didn't see eye to eye, but I still loved him. And that giving him another motivation to try to stop Miles from being Spider-Man, not just like, hey, I want you out of the way so I can do my crime stuff, but like, I'm trying to protect you from yourself because I don't want you to die. I thought that was a really interesting and like genuinely like emotional kind of premise for those two characters.
Yeah. Overall, I liked him as well. I wish he had more screen time. I wish they'd done more with it. It is the same thing of like, oh, this person I'm really close with, one of my close relatives, is also my supervillain. They play that card twice in this game, and I feel like it would have been stronger if they just focused on one or the other. Like if they just focused on, I think I would prefer if they had focused on Aaron Davis, like, and his relationship with Finn, and like, oh, my dad's dead. You're now kind of like this father figure to me, and also you're a villain. Like that is a very interesting space, and I think they could have like gotten more juice out of that if they'd focused on that storyline specifically.
For sure.
As it stands, like, I like the Prowler. I think he looks cool, and there was a cool fight you had with him. But like, they don't really use him much in the story. I feel like he's really underutilized, which is kind of a bummer in my mind.
Yeah,
it is kind of interesting how many people are in New York City and how all the superheroes and supervillains know each other.
Yeah, that's just kind of a comic book thing it's like the moment you get superpowers, you find out like, oh, all my friends and family are like villains or heroes too. I would have thought. Yeah, it's weird. It's one of the things you kind of just go like, comics.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, what percentage of the population in New York has superpowers of some kind? Is it like 10% at this point? It's got to be pretty high.
A lot. Yeah,
yeah.
I will say I did really like that Miles kind of bended to his uncle when he was trying to figure out like he's still trying to figure out how to be Spider-Man, but he's still trying to figure out how to navigate this relationship with Finn. And Aaron Davis is like, yo, infiltrate her, like, kind of use your friendship. And he kind of bends to that, right? And I feel like in the limited stuff that media I've consumed with Miles in it, like he's usually pretty gung-ho superhero. So I kind of liked that he leaned on that trust with him, and it ultimately really backfired, and I think that kind of set up the conflict towards the end, which
I really like that. I really like that because we didn't get to see that kind of unsure, not very confident side of Peter in this series. We only, because Peter had been in the game for so long, like when 2018 Spidey picked up. So like seeing Miles kind of in that phase where he's still learning the ropes, still learning how to do this whole superhero thing, and like not really confident of like what the best way to approach these situations is really awesome.
For sure. Cool. Yeah. So then later in the game, it is revealed that our dear Aaron Davis is working for Simon Krieger and Roxxon. Oh no. Blake, I know you said you had quite the soft spot for Mr. Krieger as a villain, correct?
Oh, I think he's great. Yeah, he was a good villain. Was that Troy Baker doing it?
It was Troy Baker. Yeah.
Okay. Troy Baker, very over the top individual when he acts, but I thought he had some nice subtle little touches in the interrogation room specifically, where they beat the holy hell out of Miles in
Yeah.
a way that was a little shocking. I thought that scene, and actually now that I'm thinking about it, the very beginning where you first see him after the Rhino fight, I just thought he was a fun, cheesy comic book villain that I really appreciated.
Who's very Silicon Valley billionaire, like
Yeah,
swag to him.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good comparison.
Yeah.
He's like the New
Yeah.
York Elon Musk. Yeah.
100%.
I feel like I would have liked to see more of him. It felt like he was kind of, even though he's technically the main antagonist, I would forget about him sometimes because you don't really see too much of him compared to like Finn and even Aaron.
Yeah, it really felt like they were building him up early in the game. Like, oh, this is like the Bond villain, like the guy behind the scenes pulling all the strings. And then again, like the last hour or two, I kind of forgot he was in the game. And like I guess he shows up at the end getting arrested, but you're like, oh yeah, like you kind of forget.
Yeah,
I think there is like more interesting things they could have done with the like underlying themes of gentrification and stuff that he is obviously perpetrating with Roxxon that like just wasn't explored. Like he is obviously doing like a hostile takeover of this like very multicultural neighborhood in Harlem, and I think that could have like benefited from one or two more cutscenes, even if it's something like him just talking about it.
That's really good because they didn't want the reactor in their city, but I never got a sense for why. And I wish there was a little bit more like this guy's encroaching on our culture, and maybe he tears down a community center or whatever it is. Like that's super like, you know, school special, like evil, but like something to just sell the point of like this guy is sort of ruining our city. Rather than just like, oh, it's some kind of evil energy. I don't know. It's
visually, I like that when you're in Harlem, you see that garish, ugly ass Roxxon building just kind of looming over your neighborhood. I thought visually that was really good, but yeah, wish there was more narratively about it.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything else I missed before we get to kind of the ending piece here? Is there anything else you guys want to highlight from the story, your experience with it?
Kind of going back to Aaron, and that first scene, like where you're doing kind of like the mission with the trains for him, I kept thinking in my head, like, he's going to recognize Miles' voice. And it's going to be really weird when he doesn't, because they're going to save it up for a big reveal that like, oh my God, you're Spider-Man. Oh my God, you're Prowler.
Yeah.
And it made me so happy that they just printed out like the subway cards, like Miles Morales, like awesome. Just get that out of the way.
I thought that was great because that got me, because I was thinking the same thing of like, it's always weird, like, this is your nephew. I know you maybe don't see him too often, but it's still your nephew. He's not hiding his voice at all. So I love that. Like, I was as surprised as I was like, oh crap, like he knows.
Yeah.
Because he's like, oh, he's not an idiot. Good.
And to that point too, I did love when he tried to disguise it. He wasn't fooling anyone, but when he does the serious voice, like I am Spider-Man, it's just like you're not fooling anyone. So yeah, that's a good call out, Shaq.
Yeah, he should have really watched Spider-Verse and just like, yo, I love you.
One thing that I understand, I need to give this game more of a suspension of disbelief, but Peter Parker just going on vacation and entrusting the city to a child was wildly irresponsible. Like, even, and the game even comments on it, which is why I'm bringing it up, because Aaron Davis is like, what? Peter Parker and Spider-Man's on vacation? What the hell are you talking about?
Is this just because you hate Peter, Blake? Is that just coming out more?
Everything he does is wrong in my...
The guy can't take a vacation even? You're going to be upset with him for taking a vacation?
I agree with Blake. That is very, and then, like, Spider-Man, it's very rare for him to willingly leave New York for any reason, unless it's to go stop another world threat thing.
And the escalation of events is Peter Parker's like, nah, you'll be fine. There'll be a couple robberies. Don't worry about it. And by the end of the game, an actual nuclear bomb explodes above New York City. Like, it's a madly irresponsible thing for that guy to do.
I leave you alone for like 3 weeks and a nuclear bomb goes off.
Yeah, and then Peter Parker comes back. He's like, damn, that was kind of wild, huh? Oh, well.
Because it's a normal Tuesday for Pete at this point.
No, Miles went through way more than Peter did in the first game.
I gotta say, like, clean renewable energy is really a problem.
No one can get it right.
I hate it, man.
Like Dark Knight
and that's why
well, that's what Big Oil has been telling us.
That's why I'm now personally lobbying for more fossil fuel.
Coal sounds real nice right
Blake,
now.
you said you'd keep politics out of this too. What's happening here?
That's not political.
Oh, okay.
That's for the good of the world.
Well, did you guys think too, like, this is a little bit different, but did you guys consider that Spider-Man 3 will just be whatever he was doing in Europe?
I have, yeah.
I think. Go ahead.
I think after 2 games with the same map and only like one neighborhood really changes a lot, like it would be weird to do that again unless you add another New York borough, which even then it's like, is Brooklyn going to have the same appeal to a
It's not
wider
quite the
audience
same,
as
no.
Manhattan?
Yeah.
That I've been wondering, like, does it go overseas or to another American city?
Yeah.
Like,
let's get into that a little bit later because I want to talk about the ending real quick, and then we can talk about what we think's coming next, if that's okay.
For sure.
The ending. Finn and Miles finally have their face off in the Roxxon building, which I thought, like, in a game filled with cinematic, really amazing moments, like there were some really amazing camera angles, and there was a couple annoying pieces to the actual fight, but overall I thought it nailed that sense of Miles did not want to be there. He didn't want to be doing this, and he was frustrated. It's like, let me get one sentence out to you, and this could literally save the day. And Finn just wouldn't hear it, and I think they translated that really well. What did you guys think of the fight, and then the subsequent sacrifice after it?
I thought it was a cool fight visually, and it was a lot of fun. It was pretty hard, surprisingly, at least for me. I don't know if anyone else kept dying on it.
Yeah.
Especially when you get to the final phase on the rooftop. One thing I kept thinking, I was like, man, Finn is brave. She has no fear of heights. She's just running up these buildings and stuff, and she has no superpowers, actually. So I guess props to her. But yeah, I thought the fight was really well done. I thought the dialogue between them was pretty good, and that like, even though Finn is clearly kind of clouded by her anger, she didn't seem like, at least to me, not like stupid, not like she's not like, she listens to Miles at some point, but she chooses like, no, I don't believe you. She, like, when Miles is like, no, Krieger changed the bomb. It's gonna blow up and kill all of us, not just the building. And she's like, no, he's not that smart. Like, it's not even just like, she's like, no, I'm just not gonna listen. She's like, no, he's an idiot. He would never do that. And I did the numbers. And he's like, no. So I liked that because it kind of kept her intelligence, I guess, intact.
Yeah. She was so consumed by revenge at that point where it's just like, I'm right. Nothing is going to change that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so you guys thought they did that well, just because I thought the turn when Finn turned on Miles there at the end didn't feel totally earned, because it felt like they were working together there for a while. They clearly both don't like Roxxon.
yeah.
But then it just felt like a quick turn, and like suddenly Finn's gonna fight, because they needed an end boss fight. It's like, now I'm gonna fight you, Miles. Like, it felt kind of irrational in my mind, and I didn't. And then the turn again at the end felt a little bit quick of like, oh, okay, no, now you were right, Peter. Now I'm going to sacrifice myself, which I get what they were going for, of I'm going to sacrifice myself so you can live. But it felt a little contrived. Like, oh, Peter's going to, sorry, Miles is going to blow up. And so I need to like shoot him up into the sky, and I still have to hold on to him while he blows up. I don't know.
I'm with Ben, because all of this comes down to a moment in Roxxon when they stumble across Aaron Davis, and Aaron's arguing with Rhino and Krieger about like, hey, you were not supposed to take Miles. And Finn is like, oh, so you betrayed me. And it's like, well, 2 minutes earlier in the story, you were watching Miles get like beaten half to death. Like, clearly
by this guy.
Yeah, like clearly Miles was not on board with some element of this, and that feels pretty understandable. So yeah, it felt like I understand the motivation is revenge, and she's like clouded by that, but it felt even irrational for her character. And then the like about face did feel rushed to me. Visually, though, I thought that whole thing was awesome. So I was like, whatever.
Cool.
She wants to be mad, so I can enjoy this, how this looks.
What was because the thing that triggered that turn at the end was Miles. And I don't even know, like, did she kill Rhino? It seemed like she did, but it's like, would they kill him off like that? But like, him intervening in that was what finally pushed her over the edge.
To me, you got to see the body, like the dead body, and I don't think Rhino's dead. But
we don't pull out the sword like she was going to, and then he like
the last second he like
it looked like she did it. I couldn't tell.
I don't know.
I think they give him his scene, but yeah. Anyways, yeah. But then wasn't it like everything was like malfunctioning? She saw the havoc that she had caused. I guess in a comic book way, I thought it worked. Maybe that's me.
Sure.
Maybe that's me doing mental gymnastics for that. But I thought everything in this story was relatively quick, and I guess in the story it was telling. I was okay with it. But that's just me.
Yeah, I think it's another one of those suspension of disbelief things.
Yeah. I will say the moment immediately after that where Miles falls to the ground, he has a moment with Rio, and the people of Harlem won't let the press through.
Yeah, it was so good.
I thought that was a really good moment. As a press member, I was like, come on, let us get our story. We're just trying to do our job.
Yeah.
But like, I really thought that moment really worked for me. Like that conversation, like it's cheesy, but when Rio's like, get out of here, Spider-Man, I was like, oh, love you, Mom. Like I really, really enjoyed that whole like final little moment.
That's fun. There was this moment too, like after the explosion, when he explodes in the sky, and he's like gonna free fall, right? I'm like, well, how's he gonna survive this? Like he's gonna be unconscious or something. I kind of half expected Peter Parker to come swinging in and save him. I was like, that'd be cool. I'd be for that. But also, is it like take away from like Miles' hero moment that he has to be saved by this other Spider-Man? So
yeah,
I mean, he technically got saved by his friend already. So
that's true. Yeah, this guy can't do anything.
she died, which was really shocking to me.
I did not expect that. Yeah,
No.
that moment actually kind of got me. I think honestly, like I think the moment that when you relive the science trip that you take when the flashback, which I realized we didn't even talk about, so I thought that was a pretty good moment of like establishing like the friendship these guys had and how cool. You're like, oh, Finn's pretty cool, and you kind of feel sad, like, man, it sucks that she becomes what she does.
For sure.
It was fun to see Peter and Doc Ock walk in that brief second. And like I'm such an idiot too. Like for 5 minutes, I was like, "Oh, that must be Uncle Ben he's with." And then I was like, "No, that was Doc Ock."
Yeah,
of course.
Did you hang around them and just like talk to them until they left?
Yeah.
Did you try to follow Peter?
Oh yeah. I wanted to see where that was going. But yeah, that was a great sequence. I'm glad you brought that up. But
really quick, sorry. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but was Finn's understanding that she was going to die, but also dropping Miles that he might die in that, and she was just trying to save Harlem?
I think it was
because they go like way up there.
Both, because like Miles says when he's like charged up, like, oh, basically I can't hold it, I'm gonna blow, and I think she realized like this is gonna wipe everyone when he blows up. So it's like a combination of saving him, but also since her bomb was gonna blow up Harlem anyway. Like since she didn't stop that, like Miles had to. Maybe this is her way of making amends. Of like, okay, I'm gonna have to more or less turn off my own bomb. By giving up my, because this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So
for sure. No, that's a good question though. So day is saved. Harlem has their Spider-Man. Peter comes back. He's like, oh, what happened? What's going on?
What's that Crater doing there?
Simon Krieger goes to jail. Prowler does too. Aaron Davis flips on Krieger, and if I remember right, he gets a 2-year sentence. So that I feel like
plea deal
kind of frames where we'll be seeing the next game, or at least close to it. Unless the cadence now is Miles game, Peter game, Miles game, Peter game. We'll see. So we get to the mid-credit scene, which we talked a little bit about earlier. And it's Norman Osborn walking into the lab where Harry Osborn is being held, and Kurt Connors is the doctor administrating, which I thought was really cool. I wasn't sure what they were going to do villain wise outside of Harry and Norman, so it was cool to see Kurt in there. But Norman says, "Get this boy out of here," and kind of sets up what we're going to be seeing next, hopefully. In that Harry Osborn is probably going to be Venom. Like, I think all signs point to that, which I don't know. We'll go around the horn. I love this. I love this so much. I love it because we don't have to go through a whole game of them establishing a relationship with like Eddie Brock or something, or another form of or whoever takes over for Venom. I love the fact that instantly we know Harry and Peter are best friends, like, and they're going to play up that aspect of which Ben has talked about, friends being villains. But I think this is the perfect way to launch into that. And I love Venom as a character. So I'm very excited about that. What do you guys think? What are you excited about for the next one? What do you hope to see? Blake, we can start with you.
I didn't like this scene.
No, not a fan?
It's it's the exact same post-credit stingy as the first game.
It's true. Yeah.
It's the exact same. Like, I mean, I understand, like, it establishes, like, we're gonna let him out of his tube or whatever, but,
Mhm.
like, it was the exact same. I felt like I was waiting around for something different,
That's fair.
and it just was, like, the exact same reveal as the first one. I think maybe doing something like something Green Goblin or related or some other villain would have landed for me, but it's like,
You got Lizard.
I already feel
You got
kind of
Kirk
dumb.
Connors.
I don't know who that is. I'm gonna be honest
okay.
with you.
Yeah.
I already feel kind of dumb, like waiting around, like, oh, are they gonna show me? What are they gonna show me? And
Yeah.
then, like, I'm betrayed by the exact same thing I got stoked for in the first game. So it just didn't work for me.
Like they showed you 3 different villains there. You're not
Well,
happy with that?
I don't know who Kirk Connors is.
That's true.
He's
and
another.
No one will tell me.
There's
on
no way
this
to find
show.
out.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, that's
sorry.
a spoiler.
Yeah.
Actually,
No, but like that doesn't negate that I'm excited to see see Venom in a third game. I think that's going to be cool. Just visually, like Insomniac, I assume is going to do something rad with that. Whether Peter has his whole Venom thing going on, that'd be also cool. The particular moment I just didn't care for. It's also weird Miles's powers are called Venom powers, but I don't know if that's a comic book thing or not.
It is a comic
It
book
is.
thing. People keep
Okay.
like commenting on that, and like it
Okay.
originates in the comic book, so you have to blame Brian Michael Bendis, I guess.
And I will.
Yeah. that is kind of a weird thing, though. Like that, like, hey, one of our most popular antagonists is named Venom.
Yeah.
Let's name Miles Morales' completely unrelated powers after that, but not have it be related whatsoever.
Yeah.
Well, technically, Ben, like the Venom powers originate with Spider-Woman, who predates Venom,
There you go.
like
So yeah,
as a character. So
Oh,
Venom, the
there you
go.
character, yeah.
call back to
so-
that then.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's the same power.
So
Oh.
maybe Venom is the hack.
Think
Really
so,
quick,
yeah.
was Sandman in the first game?
No,
Mm-mm.
I think he's.
Okay,
I think he's mentioned in one of those collectibles that you find,
Yeah.
but he's not in.
I think
Yeah.
he's in the
with all
raft.
with all the new particle effects or whatever these new machines can do, that's a character I just hope to see. I think that would look really cool.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah. Him or Hydro Man. That'd be
Oh,
great.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Real quick,
Or
we probably
Dr.
should wrap up here in a sec, but I would just to like what I want to see. We talked about like leaving New York, but I just Spider-Man is so New York iconic that I don't want them to leave New York. Like maybe you can add some boroughs or something, but I think the big thing to do would be just add more indoor spaces, add some facilities that Spider-Man can go in that are unique. Maybe something a la, the Arkham games where you have some indoor spaces that are map heavy that you explore, and that'll inject some fresh backgrounds into the game, some new environments you can explore while still giving you an awesome city to swing around in. Because there's not a ton of cities that are as fun to swing around in as New York would be.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's not even in America, there's even Chicago, which has a lot of skyscrapers, is not nearly as big as New York. So
My
I
bet.
could see him maybe redesigning the city too, so it's not the same like skeleton. Like obviously, it's still more or less the same, like where the buildings are going to be or whatever. But I could see them designing that for the ground up for a full.
Just
sequel.
remove more iconic landmarks.
yeah.
Read about it
Yeah.
on GameInformer.com.
Yeah. Go ahead, Marcus.
I was gonna say, at least for the next game, like seeing Kirk Connors was exciting, especially at jumping into Peter this late in the game. You don't know if he's been the lizard yet or not. Like he could be in one of his down phases of like, I've got it under control.
Yeah.
the lizard, who's the lizard, Blake?
Kirk Connors.
Yeah. Of course.
Oh,
Good job.
there you go.
Well done. Yeah.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
So that scene, yeah, like I agree with Blake that you're like, oh, it's just kind of more of the same scene with just a little bit more stuff going on. And I guess the confirmation that like, okay, we're for sure. I mean, I guess we knew that in the first game, but like Norman be like, wake him up. They're like, all right, I guess maybe even the next game just starts with that. And I was kind of hoping to get more context on like which version of Venom this was, because like looking at the symbiote, it's like, okay, it looks like it's going more what the Ultimate Comics did of it being like a synthetic man-made thing and not purely an alien. But then who knows? Maybe it is an alien that they
also
are messing around with.
They had I didn't know if I was looking too into it in the museum scene, but they're like, we've been to Mars, we've been out into space. So I'm like, is that where they got the symbiote? I guess we'll find out. But
But yeah, I'm excited for Sight. I could see kind of going where they could set it. I could see it going both ways of like maybe they'll tackle more locations. Maybe it could start in God, the country that Peter was in,
Simcaria.
Simcaria.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where Silver Sable's from. Yeah. Like if they do like their take on Far From Home, the movie almost of him having an adventure overseas and then coming back to deal with Harry or whatever is going on in New York. I think that would be a fun and kind of ambitious way to go about the third games having.
This is super in the weeds, but that could be almost a good tutorial too, because like he could be over there without his powers, necessary, or like his suit.
Without his powers?
No, he left those at home.
My powers in New York.
He took them off and said, "I don't need these. Thank you."
They couldn't get past customs.
Yeah. But like if he doesn't have his suit and gadgets, it could be like a good tutorial section or something like that. Anyways, yeah, I'm Spider-Man 3 is one of my most anticipated, especially where things are going. I'm very excited to see how they integrate like stuff with the Venom, or the Miles Venom abilities. I'm curious to see how they like integrate that with Peter. My bet is that it's going to be he's going to get the black suit finally, which fans have been asking for since 2018 game was announced. But I think that's a pretty good look. How about you guys? Pretty good?
Well, what do you mentioned real quick, I know we're almost out of time, but like you said, Spider-Man 3, which I think is an interesting point. Do you guys think it'll be called Spider-Man 3 even? Do you think they'll call it something else? Because I think some people are anticipating it'll be called Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
But does that sort of like
I think
invalidate this Spider-Man game? Is like, this wasn't a real Spider-Man game, which I think it totally was.
I do too, yeah.
I think they'll call it something else, maybe
Yeah,
like
totally
Spider-Man
was, but at the same
Pig in
time,
the City or something.
kind of a spin-off that they've acknowledged. Like it's not a full-priced game. It's not it's not a marquee like entry in the game. Or in the series. I don't think. I think that if they make like any kind of meaningful innovations in the next game, which I hope they do, then that would earn like a numbered entry in the series. I personally would like to see the ability to kind of swap between Spider-Men, like GTA 5 kind of.
That would be dope.
Wow.
I was wondering how they were going to implement both of these spiders now. I hope it's not like, well, if it's co-op, I hope they do it well, but I like your idea better, Shay, where it's like you scale out to the city and then go over to, Peter, and if they do like Brooklyn or something like that.
Even if like you have to like, certain missions have to be done by Peter and certain missions have to be done by Miles, and then like if you're just doing like side stuff, you can swap between them at will. That would be cool.
For sure.
Yeah. Plus, for titles, going back to the titles, I don't think it matters. Like, I think gamers are trained to titles or numbers and subtitles are meaningless. Like, if that mattered, then I guess every Assassin's Creed since 4 isn't a real Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah.
That's true.
So, well, gentlemen,
Bold prediction: they'll introduce Spider-Gwen at some point in the next game.
that'd be good.
That'd be cool.
That'd be very good.
Don't we need Gwen though?
What?
That's what
No.
portals are for, Brian.
Gwen's not in the 2018 2018 is she? Or is she mentioned?
She could
in one?
probably
But
already be dead.
That's why they'll
She could be, yeah.
introduce her in the third one.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Viewers, thank you for watching. Let us know what you thought of this video. Let us know if you like the game. I'm excited to hear what fans are saying about the game. As always, you can find our glorious content at GameInformer.com and YouTube.com/GameInformer. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.